13 black actors who look horrible with plastic surgery. Then and now, 2026. Hollywood doesn't just create stars, it creates insecurities, then sells the fix back to them like it's salvation. One day you're celebrated for being unique. The next day the internet calls you washed, old, or unrecognizable. And that's when the surgeries start. Botox freezes smiles. Fillers erase emotions. BBLs promise confidence but sometimes deliver pain. Today, we're exposing 13 black celebrities whose pursuit of perfection went too far, and the results shocked the world. Stay to the end, because the final story is the most brutal of all. Like, subscribe, and welcome to Legends of Black Excellence. Nicki Minaj. Nicki Minaj didn't just enter the industry, she detonated inside it. When Pink Friday dropped in 2009, her voice style and fearless persona made her impossible to ignore. She wasn't simply another rapper chasing attention. She became the blueprint for a new kind of pop rap superstardom. Back then, her look felt bold, expressive, and uniquely hers: bright wigs, dramatic makeup, and a confidence that screamed, "I'm not asking for space. I'm taking it." But in a world where fame moves like a conveyor belt, even icons are pressured to upgrade themselves before the audience moves on. As the years passed, competition got louder and beauty standards grew more extreme. The industry stopped rewarding uniqueness and started rewarding exaggeration: bigger curves, sharper faces, smaller waists, and more perfect angles for the camera. That's where the shift began. Nicki reportedly embraced a Brazilian butt-lift BBL that made her curves look like they doubled overnight, and for a moment the public treated it like a victory lap. But applause doesn't tell the whole story. Behind the viral moments and red carpet flashes, the mirror can become a battlefield, because once you change one thing, the pressure to match the new version of yourself can spiral fast. And then came the facial changes: a slimmer nose, fuller cheeks, lips shaped into a doll-like pout. Little by little, what used to be expressive started to look stiff, almost frozen, like the face was performing instead of living. The energy was still there, the star power was still there, but the visual identity began to shift into something unfamiliar. Do you think fame pressures women more than men to fix what was never broken? Because that's the trap. The more you chase perfection, the more you risk erasing the very details that made you unforgettable. Nicki's story is more than gossip. It's a mirror of how ruthless the beauty economy can be. The transformation shows how the race doesn't end when you win. It only raises the finish line higher, demanding more change, more upgrades, and more sacrifice. In the end, the warning isn't that glow-ups are wrong. It's that when perfection becomes the goal, identity becomes the price. LaToya Jackson. LaToya Jackson was born into one of the most famous families on earth. But fame doesn't always feel like a blessing when you're living in someone else's shadow. While Michael became a global phenomenon and Janet rose into pop royalty, LaToya spent years being treated like the other one the sister people compared, overlooked, and underestimated. Imagine being surrounded by legends and still feeling invisible. That kind of pressure doesn't just mess with your career, it messes with how you see yourself when the cameras turn off. And when recognition feels out of reach, Hollywood offers the same solution on repeat: change your face. LaToya didn't chase plastic surgery for fun, she chased it for control. In the 1980s, cosmetic procedures were becoming more common in celebrity circles, and LaToya tried to carve out her own identity through small fixes. But one adjustment can quickly become a pattern, especially when the world keeps judging you by your appearance before your talent. A nose job became another nose job, then another. Each time the promise was the same: this will finally make you feel confident. This will finally make you stand out. Over time, though, the changes didn't make her more unique, they made her harder to recognize. Her nose appeared thinner and sharper, her skin looked tighter, and the warmth that once lived in her face seemed to fade behind a polished, stretched look. Instead of becoming more visible, she began to look like someone trying to escape her own reflection. The transformation didn't create confidence, it created distance between who she was and what the world expected her to become. LaToya's story is a quiet warning wrapped in celebrity headlines. You can't fix insecurity with a scalpel. The more she tried to outrun comparison, the more she lost the features that made her human familiar and real. And in the end, the saddest twist is this: she didn't escape the shadow by transforming. She only drifted further away from the person she was trying to protect. Patti LaBelle. Patti LaBelle wasn't just a singer, she was a living institution. For decades, she walked onto a stage like royalty, carrying a voice so powerful it could shake a room without a microphone. Her elegance felt untouchable, the kind of beauty that didn't need to scream for attention because her presence did it naturally. Patti's face wasn't just a look, it was part of her legacy. Every smile, every dramatic expression, every emotion in her eyes helped tell the story of a woman who survived the industry and still stood tall as a diva. But time has a cruel way of testing even the strongest icons. As Patti aged, the world didn't stop praising her talent, yet the spotlight started shifting to her appearance like wrinkles mattered more than decades of musical greatness. And after losing her husband of over 30 years, grief didn't just hit her heart. It hit her reflection, too. Suddenly, the mirror could feel louder than the applause. In a culture obsessed with youth, it's easy to understand how just a small fix can start feeling like protection instead of vanity. So, the cosmetic changes began. A nose adjustment here, Botox to smooth out time, fillers to bring back fullness. It sounds harmless when you say it fast, but the results don't always stay subtle. Over time, her nose appeared unusually shortened. Her cheeks looked puffed up, and Botox seemed to freeze the expressions that once carried so much emotion. The same face that used to communicate power, pain, joy, and survival started to look stiff, like the story was trapped underneath the surface. And that's the tragedy with legends like Patti LaBelle. She never lost her voice, she never lost her strength, and she never lost her crown. But visually, something changed that fans couldn't ignore. The talent stayed untouched. Yet the signature face that helped make her unforgettable felt blurred. Patti's journey becomes a warning, whispered through glamour and grief. When you chase youth too hard, you don't just risk changing how you look. You risk losing the very identity that made the world fall in love with you in the first place. Wendy Williams. Wendy Williams never became famous by being quiet or polite. She built her empire by being bold, loud, unpredictable, and fearless enough to say what everyone else only whispered. In the 1990s and beyond, she didn't just host a show, she became the moment. Wendy's power wasn't only in her voice, but in her presence. Sharp opinions, big energy, and a personality that could shake up celebrities' headlines and even the entire culture. But the same spotlight that made Wendy rich also made her a target because in Hollywood, women aren't just expected to entertain, they're expected to stay visually perfect while doing it. That pressure didn't arrive overnight. Wendy's transformation happened in phases. First came the body changes, breast implants, liposuction reshaping moves that promised confidence and camera-ready curves. For a while it worked. But cosmetic procedures can become a cycle, especially when the public watches your face and body as closely as they watch your talent. Botox entered the picture. Fillers followed. A nose job promised balance but slowly shifted her natural harmony. Each procedure was presented like a fresh start. But the more she adjusted, the further she drifted from the Wendy people recognized. Over time, the results began to look uneven. Her upper body stayed heavier, while her lower half looked thinner, creating a silhouette that felt unbalanced. Her cheeks appeared puffed up, lips looked swollen, and her expressions became stiff, almost frozen. And for a talk show host, that's a brutal change because her face wasn't just a face. It was part of her storytelling. Wendy's reactions were half the show. When your expressions stop moving the way they used to, the audience doesn't just notice, they feel it. Then life hit harder than any headline. A public divorce, cheating scandals, and humiliation played out in front of the world. Wendy didn't just lose a relationship, she lost peace. And that's when the deeper truth shows up. Sometimes people don't chase surgery for beauty. They chase it to escape pain. Wendy seemed to be trying to erase heartbreak through reinvention, hoping a new body and a new face could create a new beginning. But the message. Foxy Brown. In the late 1990s, Foxy Brown didn't just rap, she commanded the era. With razor-sharp confidence, a fearless delivery, and a face that helped define hip-hop beauty at its peak, she looked untouchable. Foxy wasn't chasing trends back then. She was the trend. Every appearance carried that star power energy, the kind that made people believe she'd be around forever. But hip-hop fame can be brutal. One minute you're on top, and the next minute the industry moves on like you never existed. Behind the scenes, her rise began to collide with real-life chaos. Legal troubles, time in prison, and the growing weight of personal setbacks started pulling her away from the spotlight. Then came something even more devastating. Hearing loss, a struggle that doesn't just affect music, but affects identity. When an artist's gift is connected to sound, losing that connection can feel like losing your entire reason for being. Foxy didn't just face career problems. She faced the kind of silence that can swallow confidence whole. So when the idea of a comeback surfaced, it wasn't only about returning to music, it was about reclaiming the woman people once worshipped. And that's where the makeover mindset stepped in. She reportedly turned to cosmetic procedures, a slimmer nose. Botox fillers changes meant to refresh her look and match the new generation's standards. On paper, it sounds like a smart reset. But the camera doesn't lie. The more she adjusted, the more the natural life in her face seemed to fade. Her cheeks looked puffed, her expressions appeared stiff, and her smile, once full of attitude, started to look less alive. When Foxy finally reappeared publicly, the reaction wasn't celebration. It was shock. People didn't cheer first. They stared first. The tragedy wasn't that she wanted to evolve, it was that the transformation became the headline instead of the talent. Instead of being remembered for a strong return, her comeback was remembered for the wrong reasons. The look, the changes, the confusion. Foxy Brown's story proves a painful truth. When you try to rebuild your legacy through surgery, the world may end up focusing on your face instead of your fight. Vanessa Williams. Vanessa Williams is the definition of a woman who refused to stay defeated. In 1984, she made history by becoming the first Black Miss America, a moment that didn't just crown her, it challenged an entire country's beauty standards. She wasn't simply pretty enough to win. She was poised, intelligent, and magnetic, the kind of star people assumed would glide straight into Hollywood greatness. But fame has a cruel way of rewarding you with one hand while punishing you with the other. Not long after her win, a nude photo scandal exploded into the public eye, and the industry treated it like a death sentence. Overnight, the headlines didn't talk about her talent anymore. They talked about her image. The message from Hollywood was loud and cold: "You're finished." But Vanessa didn't disappear. She rebuilt her career piece by piece, turning humiliation into fuel and proving she was more than a moment. Over time, she earned her way back into the spotlight, gaining recognition again through acting, music, and memorable roles that reminded people she belonged on the main stage. Yet even after a comeback, a new battle quietly crept in, one that hits nearly every woman in entertainment sooner or later: the fear of aging. In an industry addicted to youth, staying visible can feel like a full-time job. Vanessa reportedly started with a subtle nose refinement, a change that seemed small and controlled. But time doesn't stop, and once the first step is taken, it's easy for maintenance to become routine. Botox became more common. Fillers followed. Wrinkles softened, but something else disappeared too: the natural expressions that made her face feel warm and alive. As the years passed, the polished look began to cross into something harsher. Cheeks that looked unnaturally full, a smile that didn't move the same way, a face that felt frozen, almost like a wax figure trying to imitate Vanessa Williams instead of simply being her. And that's the heartbreaking irony. She spent years proving her worth beyond scandal, only to face a different kind of pressure later, the pressure to look untouched by time. Her story carries a message that cuts deeper than gossip. Aging isn't the enemy. Fear is. Fear of becoming invisible. Fear of being replaced. Fear of losing value in a world that treats youth like currency. Vanessa's journey reminds us that the moment you start fighting time like it's a villain, you risk losing the very beauty you already earned through survival, resilience, and history. Tiny Harris. Tiny Harris was once the kind of star people loved without even trying to explain why. Back in the days of X-Escape, she had a soft charm that felt real, sweet eyes, a warm smile, and a look that didn't rely on exaggeration. She didn't need extreme curves or a dramatic Instagram face to stand out because her presence was natural and recognizable. Tiny came across like someone comfortable in her skin, and that effortless vibe became part of what fans connected to. But fame doesn't stay frozen in time, and neither do beauty standards. As the years passed, the industry's expectations became harsher, louder, and more demanding, especially for women. The spotlight started rewarding the most extreme transformations, and the pressure to look perfect began to feel like a requirement instead of a choice. For Tiny, the fear wasn't just aging. It was the feeling that in entertainment, once you're labeled older, you can become invisible overnight. So she reportedly turned to cosmetic changes in an attempt to keep up a nose job, then fillers, Botox, and even skin lightening treatments meant to create a polished, youthful look. But instead of refinement, the transformation began erasing what made her recognizable. Her skin appeared paler and more lifeless, like the warmth had been drained out. Her face looked stiff, tight, and frozen, more like a wax figure under studio lights than the Tiny fans remembered. The most painful part wasn't that she changed. It was that the changes seemed to strip away her signature softness, the human expressions that once made her feel approachable. When she appeared in public, reactions weren't applause, they were confusion. People didn't know whether to celebrate her or stare, trying to figure out what happened. Tiny's story hits hard because it shows how dangerous trend chasing can become when insecurity and fame collide. Cosmetic surgery can adjust a face, but it can also erase the small details that make someone feel real. And the deeper lesson is simple: never trade your identity for a trend. Beauty standards change every decade, but once you lose your natural signature, trying to keep up the world doesn't always give it back. T-Boz Watkins. T-Boz was never just a singer, she was the soul and attitude of TLC. With that raspy, unmistakable tone and a cool, effortless edge, she didn't need to try hard to be memorable. Her sharp features, laid-back confidence, and realness made her stand out in an era where authenticity mattered. TLC wasn't only music, it was a movement. And T-Boz carried the vibe that made fans feel like they were watching someone genuine, not manufactured. She looked like herself, sounded like herself, and that identity became part of the magic. But behind the calm exterior, life hit her with the kind of pain fame can't soften. The loss of Lisa Left Eye Lopes shattered more than the group, it shook her sense of stability. Add years of battling serious health issues, and you start to understand how the mirror can become a different kind of enemy. Sometimes it's not vanity that pushes a person towards surgery. It's grief, fear, and the terrifying feeling of fading out while the world keeps moving. For T-Boz, aging was not the only worry. It was the fear of becoming invisible, of losing control over how the world remembered her. That's where the cosmetic changes reportedly began. A nose job in the mid-2000s was meant to be subtle, something small that would refresh her appearance. But instead, the result looked too shrunken, throwing off the balance of her face. And once something feels off, people often chase the fix with more fixes. Botox came next. Fillers followed. Instead of softness and youth, her face began to look stiff and swollen in places, as if the expressions fans loved were trapped underneath the surface. The features that once gave her cool charisma started to look tightened, hardened, and strangely unfamiliar under the spotlight. What makes T-Boz's story feel heavy isn't that she changed her look. It's why she may have felt she needed to. She never lost her talent, never lost her voice, and never lost her legacy. But the pressure of grief and time can push even legends to fight battles they shouldn't have to fight. And the message lands like a hard truth. Trying to heal pain with cosmetic surgery is like putting makeup on a broken heart, pretty on the outside, but it doesn't fix what's bleeding inside. Lisa Ray McCoy. Lisa Ray McCoy was one of those women who didn't have to beg for attention. She owned it. After the Players Club in 1998, she became the definition of effortless seduction. Sharp eyes, balanced features, and a confidence that felt natural, not manufactured. Her beauty wasn't just about being pretty. It had attitude. It had presence. She looked like the kind of star who knew exactly who she was, and that self-assurance made her even more magnetic on screen. But years later, reality hit in a way the cameras couldn't soften. According to the transcript, her divorce in 2008 wasn't just a breakup, it was an emotional collapse surrounded by public chatter and painful accusations. And when heartbreak happens under a spotlight, it doesn't just damage your private life. It can shake your self-image too. Instead of letting time and healing do their work, Lisa Ray chose reinvention, trying to rebuild herself through cosmetic upgrades, as if a new face could also mean a new beginning. The changes reportedly started with a nose job meant to refine what was already striking. But instead of enhancing her signature look, the refinement sharpened her features too much, stripping away the softness fans remembered. Still chasing perfect, she went further. Her chin was reshaped into a sharp triangle, giving her face a more sculpted, dramatic structure. Then came fillers, inflating her cheeks in a way that made her look glossy and stiff rather than youthful. By the time she reappeared publicly, the shock wasn't subtle. Her jaw seemed longer, her nose looked unusually small, and her overall face didn't match the Lisa Ray people had locked in their memories. That's the cruel twist. She didn't lose her beauty, but she lost her recognition. The industry didn't applaud her transformation, it stared at it, confused. And the deeper lesson is heartbreaking. When you chase youth too hard, you can end up erasing the very identity that made you unforgettable. Lisa Ray's story proves that sometimes the real danger isn't aging. It's trying so hard to preserve beauty that you delete your signature along the way. Tasha Smith. Tasha Smith was never the type of actress Hollywood could put in a perfect little box, and that's exactly why audiences loved her. She didn't need the cookie-cutter beauty look to steal a scene. Her power came from personality, sharp humor, raw confidence, and that natural charm that felt familiar, like someone you've known your whole life. Whether she was making people laugh on Martin or leaving an impression through her strong presence in the world of black sitcoms and film, Tasha built a career on being real, not polished, not plastic, just authentic. But the entertainment industry has a cruel habit. It celebrates women loudly in their prime, then quietly pushes them aside as they age. After Tasha crossed into her 40s, the opportunities reportedly slowed down. Roles became fewer, and that silence can mess with even the strongest confidence. Then life delivered an even harder blow. Her marriage fell apart in a very public, painful way. When heartbreak and career pressure hit at the same time, it creates the perfect storm. You start believing you need a new you to survive the old pain. For many stars, reinvention becomes a shield, and cosmetic surgery starts looking like the fastest way to rebuild control. That's when the changes reportedly began. First a nose job, then Botox, then fillers. What started as a simple refresh slowly shifted the balance of her face. Instead of looking younger and brighter, the results appeared to dull the natural warmth people associated with her. Her cheeks looked firmer, her expressions less flexible, and the unique look that once made her instantly recognizable began to blur. It wasn't just about wrinkles disappearing. It was about emotion, disappearing from her face, the little movements that made her feel alive on screen. Tasha's story carries a message that cuts deeper than appearance. She still has talent, She still has resilience. But her transformation shows a truth many people learn the hard way: you can't heal emotional wounds by changing the outside. Surgery may hide pain for a moment, but it doesn't erase betrayal, loneliness, or fear. And when the goal becomes fixing yourself to feel worthy again, you risk losing the very thing that made people love you in the first place: your real, unfiltered identity. Vivica, a fox. Vivica A. Fox has always carried the kind of beauty that hits you instantly, sharp, confident, and impossible to ignore. From Independence Day to Kill Bill, she wasn't just another actress in the cast. She made entrances. She had that polished, grown woman elegance mixed with street-smart intensity, the kind of presence that could turn one scene into a signature moment. Vivica represented an era where black women on screen didn't have to shrink themselves to be accepted. They could be bold, glamorous, and powerful at the same time. But Hollywood has a cruel stopwatch for women, especially women who are judged as much by their face as their talent. The moment a woman shows signs of aging, the conversation shifts from "she looks amazing" to "she used to be so beautiful." Wrinkles become headlines. Youth becomes currency. And instead of being allowed to evolve naturally, actresses often feel pressured to fight time like it's a scandal. For someone like Vivica, whose brand was built on beauty confidence and camera-ready perfection, that kind of pressure can feel like a trap you can't escape. According to the narrative, it started harmlessly. A little Botox here, a small touch-up there. The kind of changes people label as maintenance because they're meant to look subtle and easy. For a moment, it probably worked: smooth skin, fresh glow, and the public still approving the image. But the danger with cosmetic work is that just a little can quickly become a routine, and routines can become dependence when your face is part of your paycheck. Over time, the results reportedly grew heavier. Fillers thickened her cheeks, tightening procedures pulled her skin taut, and the expressions that once carried her natural charm began to freeze mid-smile. By the late 2000s, the reaction around her appearance wasn't the same kind of praise anymore. Instead of fans saying, "she looks stunning," people whispered, "she looks different." That's the part that hurts the most, because the tragedy wasn't that Vivica aged. Aging is normal. The tragedy was fighting it so hard that the natural Vivica started disappearing behind a polished, unfamiliar version of herself. Her story leaves one haunting message: the real loss isn't growing older. It's resisting it until your authenticity fades away. Kim Fields. Kim Fields was once one of America's most familiar faces, the kind of child star audiences watched grow up like family. On The Facts of Life, she carried a bright energy and a signature smile that felt effortless, sweet, warm, and full of personality. She didn't need heavy glamour or a perfect Hollywood face to be loved. Her appeal came from comfort and authenticity, the kind of natural charm that made viewers root for her without even realizing it. For many fans, Kim wasn't just a character. She was a memory from a simpler time. But Hollywood doesn't always grow up with its child stars. As the years passed, the roles became less consistent, and the spotlight that once followed her so easily started to fade. That transition is brutal because child fame can feel like a promise until the industry quietly replaces you with the next younger face. Then, when Kim returned years later through reality television, the pressure hit differently. Reality TV is a mirror you can't escape. Constant cameras, close-up angles, harsh lighting, and endless online commentary. Surrounded by women who looked ageless, Kim reportedly began to feel like she didn't fit in anymore. That insecurity is where the cosmetic changes began. Botox came first, the typical quick fix meant to smooth time away. Then, fillers followed. But instead of refreshing her look, the procedures reportedly stiffened her face and flattened the expressions people remembered most. Her cheeks looked firmer, her features less flexible, and the signature smile that once defined her career started to disappear. The most heartbreaking part wasn't just the physical change, it was the emotional shift. When a face that once felt warm suddenly looks frozen, It makes the audience feel like they lost connection to the person they grew up watching. Kim Fields' story is a quiet tragedy because she didn't lose her talent. She lost the visual familiarity that made her instantly recognizable. It's a reminder that cosmetic surgery doesn't just change a face. It can change the way memories feel. And the message hits hard. Fame can steal your childhood, and chasing perfection can steal what's left. In trying to stay accepted in a world obsessed with youth, she risked losing the very thing that made people love her in the first place, her natural human glow. K. Michelle. K. Michelle once stood out because she didn't look like a copy of anyone else. Early on, she carried a natural confidence, bold, curvy in her own way, and unapologetically herself. Her presence didn't come from chasing perfection, it came from owning her flaws and turning them into power. She had the kind of energy that made people believe she could survive any industry pressure because she seemed comfortable in her skin. But the entertainment world has a dangerous addiction. It rewards upgrades more than authenticity, and it convinces women that good enough is never really good enough. By 2014, according to the transcript, she chose a Brazilian butt lift BBL in hopes of elevating her image and keeping the spotlight locked on her. And at first it seemed like it worked: bigger curves, louder attention, more headlines. But the attention didn't come with peace. Reality hit hard when the results started looking uneven and out of proportion. What was meant to boost confidence became a physical burden. Instead of feeling empowered, she reportedly faced constant discomfort, swelling, numbness, and sharp pain that followed her everywhere. The surgery didn't just reshape her body, it reshaped her daily life. Then came the real nightmare. In 2018, the transcript describes a terrifying moment: K. Michelle waking up in extreme pain, her body swollen and struggling with mobility so severe it felt like she could barely move her legs. The procedure, designed to make her feel better, nearly took away something far more valuable than beauty: her freedom. Imagine chasing a new look and ending up trapped inside pain you can't switch off. Sitting became torture. Moving became a challenge. And the worst part is that the suffering wasn't hidden. It became part of her public story, a warning written across her life. K. Michelle's journey is one of the harshest reminders of what cosmetic extremes can cost. This wasn't about a simple glow-up. It was about a trend that turned into trauma. Her story proves a truth many people ignore until it's too late. Chasing perfection doesn't just risk changing your appearance. It can steal your health, your confidence, and pieces of your life that may never fully return. Hollywood keeps selling the same dangerous lie that youth is the only version of beauty worth celebrating. But when you look at these transformations, the real story isn't bad surgery. It's fear pressure, and an industry that punishes women for aging in public. Some of these stars didn't lose their talent. They lost their facial identity, chasing a standard that keeps moving. And the scariest part: the audience helps fuel it every time we mock wrinkles, but praise ageless. So let's debate this honestly. Is cosmetic surgery a personal choice, or a system-wide trap created by Hollywood and social media? Legends of Black excellence.